Hi, Sean. Thank you for having me on your broadcast today and letting me expose and share my story of my son to try to get him back home. Appreciate that. Not sure where you wanted me to begin, if you wanted me to just kind of explain what happened and what it was like, where we're at now.
Yeah, let's just begin at the beginning because, this could happen to pretty much anyone. CPS has quite a bit of power in states around the union, and perhaps too much power, and that might be the understatement of the year. First,
I agree with you.
Let's set the stage. You have a son and a daughter, correct?
Right. I'm a single mother of 4 children. I have 2 older boys. My oldest is 26. He's in Fort Lauderdale. He graduated from FSU. He's a general contractor, and he's just started engineering school. He stayed back in Florida where we came to Colorado from. We transferred out here. I have a 22-year-old who graduated from Washington and Lee, and he's now going for his doctorate at Duke. I have a 15-year-old daughter who is here with me in Colorado. She's a sophomore in high school. And then I have my 7-year-old son, Michael, who is has some health conditions. And just to let you know, about a year and a half ago, my son Michael's pediatrician from birth decided that it would be in his best interest to transfer him out here to Colorado, to the Children's Colorado Hospital, the Anschutz Hospital, where they could possibly find an underlying reason for his seizures. So I left a good paying job, came out here, enrolled him into the kindergarten and got him registered into the hospital to get a workup done, and enrolled my daughter into the school out here as well, and ended up having to become a certified nurse's assistant, which is not my background, making, a quarter of what I was making. So, but I would do anything for my son, just to let you know. Most parents, I think, would. That was for kindergarten. For first grade, my son needed what was called a paraprofessional. For any folks out there who don't know what that is, a paraprofessional is somebody who can help you at, a child at school, or, I'm not sure if they use them in different arenas, but that can help a child at school to open his lunch, put on his coat, help him, use the restroom safely so he doesn't have a seizure, different things like that. So, the school board here in Douglas County, particularly Wendy Jacobs in Pioneer Elementary, decided that they did not want to offer my son those services. At that point, I had to make a choice, and I said, well, I guess what I'll do is homeschool him, even that's not something I would want to do right now because, I didn't know how. I was going to homeschool him because I didn't come out to Colorado for a legal battle with the school district. I came out to Colorado to try to get to the bottom of his seizures. The school, I hired an educational coordinator who created a curriculum for my son. My son has days that fluctuate up and down, particular condition that he has. So I started to home him in November of last year, of 2018. By January of 2000, I had the CPS, which stands for Child Protective Services, letting me know they had received a call for possible misrepresentation of my son's illness. And so I said, well, just come on in, come on into my house. I didn't have anything to hide. Go ahead and call the doctors. They have all of his medical records. The caseworker that came to my house then left. She came back 2 more times, once in February, once in March, to interview my children. Was telling me that she was looking through the medical records each time. And then they wanted to offer me what was called a medical navigator or a medical appointment maker because they saw how many appointments my son had. I thought that was a great idea. As being a mom, not knowing, not having seen the state report or having any knowledge that the Child Protective Services in some areas is a front for child trafficking and has child trafficking rings in certain areas, I did not know that was, I didn't know what to look out for. In other words, up to 117 days ago, Sean, if somebody would have told me that their child was removed by the CPS, I would have definitely been in the population that would have said, well, there's more to the story.
Right.
You know, and that's just, I'm just being honest. They wanted to give me this appointment maker. Let me get something for my throat here.
And let me just say, shout out to Jim White over at Northwest Liberty News. I think you've been on with Jim White telling your story several times. Is that correct?
Yeah, Jim has been a real good friend for me, allowing me to actually take time to show the actual hard evidence in the papers that have gone on through this, as well as a good support through this. Yeah.
All right, so just so the audience understands and I understand, and let's just do this too. Now, you told me before we began recording here that your son's first name isn't actually Michael.
When you have a minor, they're calling it. I even have a restraining order against me now because they think that the publicity is hurting my minor children. When you're using a minor's first name, they're not making the decision. So now I have the CPS making a decision as to whether or not any of my videos are, number one, real, or any of the stuff I'm saying, and number two, in his best interest. So by using his name as Michael, his middle name is Michael, but by using his name as Michael, I am using his picture, but by using his name as Michael, I feel like gives him a little bit of protection in the future too, if he does not want this to be his life.
All right, that makes sense, because your last name is out there. All right, understood. I just wanted to address that in case people dig into this further and then accuse you of being a liar.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
All right, so where is he now? And I would assume foster care?
He's in foster care. I don't know where. Right.
And how often do you get to see him?
I have seen him 3 times in the last 117 days.
All right, so CPS comes into your house under the guise, whenever you hear that knock on the door, hey, we're from the government, we're here to help, don't let them in. What was the reason for them to take Michael? We understand he's got seizures, he's got health problems. You moved to Colorado to try to address those problems. Why Colorado of all places?
His pediatrician said that this particular hospital had some subspecialties that he thought would be able to get to the bottom of my son's condition.
And your son's condition is mainly seizures?
Yeah, epilepsy. And he has an intellectual and developmental disability from the epilepsy, from the seizures. And he's also diagnosed with autism. He has they're trying to pinpoint what's causing all of this.
Sure.
So they pretended to give me an appointment maker. I got a call from a whistleblower the night before for this particular meeting that I was going to get this appointment maker, this medical person to help me. But he wanted to let me know that position did not exist, that they were going to take my son. And that was my first experience with any kind of red pilling or any kind of knowing that this was not a legitimate thing, and I said, well, I thought that guy was nuts. And then I went down there and asked them to put it in writing, and they wouldn't. And then they told me I had to come down to the courthouse to deny the appointment maker, the medical navigator. I go down to the courthouse, and it's a full-blown hearing, and they take my son. And to answer your question, the reason was possible misrepresentation of medical condition.
So what is that, like Munchausen by proxy? Is that what they're accusing you of?
That's what they ended up pushing towards. But the original emergency, life or death, you have to have a life or death emergency to take a child without a warrant. And generally you don't take a child for an emergency and wait from January till May, because they seized him on May 17th. But they started this in January. So if my son was really in life or death harm, he probably would have been taken prior to 4.5 months later. If it was a true, if he was bleeding out or, really abused, and then they left my daughter at home with me, So that's the Munchausen syndrome by proxy on another or fictitious disorder is what they're accusing me of now.
And yet you have the medical records going back presumably many years here, maybe his entire lifetime, showing that he actually has epilepsy, seizures, and that what does your doctor say about all this? How does the doctor not intervene?
The doctor, the head neurologist at Children's who was seeing him, emailed me after they took him, and she said she tried to tell them not to take him, but they told her that her input didn't matter.
All right, so for those who have never been through this experience, like me, I don't understand how something like this can happen. I don't understand how CPS can have this kind of power. What is your recourse? What are you doing to try to get your son back? And why did they place a restraining order against you?
I'll make it as quick as possible. After they seized my son illegally, we filed a writ of habeas corpus for illegal detainment. My son did not see anybody from our family for 66 days or have any contact. They took him somewhere. On day 66, I saw my son. They told me that I was not allowed to tell him that I loved him or that I missed him, or they would terminate my visit with him immediately if I didn't comply. That was the first visit. The second visit, my son had a black eye. And the third visit, my son told me that the inside of his sphincter hurt. And I said, "What's that?" And he explained to me that it was the inside of his tush, and he used a different word and told me that his foster family was teaching him about this. When I asked the supervisor of the visit to report this, that's when they filed the restraining order on me and told me that I was subtly coaching my son, and then that I was subtly coaching him, that I shouldn't be concerned with him complaining about the inside of his tush hurting.
All right, so let me just be real clear here for the audience. I'm having Cindy on merely because I'm taking a leap of faith. As a father of children myself, obviously I'd be devastated if I was going through this, and I would want to have a platform publicly to try to get my story out and to try to get my son back. James White over there at Northwest Liberty News speaks highly of you. He certainly believes your story. What can people do to try to help you apply some sort of pressure on CPS in Colorado to get some answers, to find out where your son is, to make sure that he's safe, and to potentially, eventually, hopefully get him back into your care?
Well, what I want to say is I want to make it really clear to anybody who has any questions. It's really not about believing me. It's about believing the evidence. And I've got quite a bit of investigative journalists that have gone through all of my evidence. And the evidence speaks for itself. So that's why I've been able to expose my son's story on all these shows, because I do have the evidence that they did steal my son and that they are, that this is a very wrong situation. So I appreciate you taking that leap of faith. The email that people can reach me at is bringmichaelhome1111@gmail.com. My Twitter handle is the @GCR Marketing, G as in God, C as in Cindy, R Marketing. I have a GoFundMe for financial help for lawyers' fees.
Yeah, that's very, very tough. And
we miss him.
He's 7 years old.
Yeah, he's 7. He has an intellectual disability, but we're a really loving family, Sean. We miss him a lot. He doesn't understand why he can't come home with us. There's a lot of civil and constitutional rights that have been violated with this agency. And, I have to just be careful. He has a rare blood type. There's a lot of conspiracy things that I have never heard of and I'm not aware of that are going on regarding, reasons that children are taken. I've been already cleared of this Munchausen syndrome by proxy by a psychiatrist just within the past month. I don't have it. They won't interview anybody in my family. His doctors on this side, the therapists who have seen him have seizures. They just...
You there?
I hope you didn't get me crying.
No, you're okay. Look, guys, we just had a Wi-Fi.
It's hard. I miss him a lot.
Guys, we just had a Wi-Fi connection issue, so reconnected here with Cindy. Cindy, I know it's very emotional for you, and any of us who are parents can certainly understand, and we have empathy for you. Again, we want to help you. We'll certainly pray for you. And without getting you into any more legal problems with these people, Is there any pressure that can be applied specifically to CPS? I mean, Colorado's a big state. Do you want to talk about which specific CPS office it is? Do you want to talk about, the manager or the person in charge of that office? Is there anything that we can do that would actually help you, or is any activism done by people in this audience only going to harm you?
You know what? I can't answer that question, but I can tell you it's the Douglas County Child Protective Services in Douglas County, Colorado. I could use court support. We haven't started protesting outside of this particular court. It's not even a court, it's an administrative court. It's a justice center. So I think that pushing this with exactly what I'm doing, exposure on your show, and getting this into some sort of mainstream media that's not going to twist up my story is going to be really helpful to getting him home. I know you haven't seen it, but the amount of evidence that I have is so clear cut that my son was taken illegally, that if there's anybody out there who has the ability to just even overlook the evidence, not to mention he's now being abused. I have to be careful what I say. So I would say putting pressure on him. If anybody can follow me on Twitter and has any ideas that wants to direct message me, definitely prayers. That's been what's getting me through. My relationship with God and Jesus Christ has been what's getting me through this. Or awaken, awaken to this. So I'm processing a lot of this information of kind of, things aren't really as they seem. We have an emotional support group for parents. There's that many of them who have had their children illegally seized by CPS. Most of the parents, Sean, don't get their children back. I have launched a RICO investigation, a RICO request at RICOCPS.com to try to have a racketeering investigation launched upon CPS nationwide. I'm really trying to do anything I can to expose this and to bring my son home where he belongs. So anybody that would want to help with any of those things, we would really be grateful, me and my family.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, if you're listening and you want to reach out to Cindy, the information, probably the best way to do that is via Twitter or the email. Shout out your email again.
My email is bringmichaelhome1111@gmail.com, and my Twitter handle is @GCRmarketing. I'm hoping to maybe pop on your show and have my son with me the next time for an update. That's what I keep hoping for.
Well, that would be fantastic, and we'll pray for you. We're rooting for you, and certainly your son. The best care that a kid can get is typically in the hands of the mother that bore that child, and not in the hands of CPS. So we'll keep our eye on this story. And Cindy, all our best.
Thanks, Sean. God bless.
God bless.